Hi, my name is Beth Thicklin and I work for Families Together. I'm the Outreach Director. Thank you so much for agreeing to help us with our Cougs Connect program. Families Together believes that family involvement, community programs, and direct supports for individuals with disabilities are essential to increase their resiliency, accessibility in reaching their potential, and maintaining a fulfilling life that contributes to our society. Families Together's programs are designed to build and sustain strong, healthy, informed, and actively involved parents, siblings, friends, caregivers, and community members who can work together to improve the lifelong outcomes for individuals with disabilities. So we want to make sure that while you're working with kids through Cougs Connect, that the experience for both you, the kids, the family is a positive one. So we want to have positive interactions with our kids. This needs to be fun. These kids are learning appropriate internet boundaries. They have been on the internet way more than any other kids just to do their normal stuff. So we want to make sure that we're reinforcing healthy internet boundaries for them. Just that safe, what you would consider safe internet etiquette. So not giving out your address, not giving out your any identifying names to people that you don't really know, those kind of things. You want to reinforce that when you're working with them and saying, hey, we don't know each other that well, so we're not gonna give out too much information so that when they're having interactions with people that through another platform that they are able to repeat that. And we also want you to report your hours to Families Together so that we can put that into Give Pulse for you so that you get your time in. So, hey, the rules for this are pretty simple. We want you to know yourself, be honest about what you feel comfortable with, and really only help kids if you're doing tutoring in areas that you are an expert or that you know how to help them. If you're just doing one-on-one, like social time support, whatever you feel comfortable with, make sure that that's okay. When you're talking to our parents after a session or before, we want to give positive feedback first on what happened in the session. So Johnny was great with his algebra, but he really struggled in writing a paragraph when we sat down to do that. And let them know that later. So the positive first, and then anything that needs improvement. So also we want to think about challenging behaviors in our sessions, and that would be kids who don't want to interact with you, kids who get frustrated. And so we want to make sure that we don't take that personally, and we try when a kid starts doing something you don't want them to do, like they're not interacting with you anymore, that we try and work with them, talk to them, try and figure out why it is that they're not wanting to interact with us, and then changing what we do so that that behavior goes away. It's usually challenging behaviors are a child's needs aren't being met or a child's wants aren't being met. We do have a rule in place for safety. We want to make sure that there's a parent or guardian in the room when you start the session, just so everybody knows where everybody is. And you are going to be responsible for working out expectations for what you're doing in an online session. So if the parent wants you to play games with a kid, perfectly okay. Anything to give that parent a break from that on time, because it's a 24/7 job caring for a child who has different needs, then that's fine. And if they want you to meet certain goals with, like, hey, get this worksheet, can you just help with this one worksheet and get the kid finished? Make sure that, you guys know what you're going to be working on. We don't want any disappointment there. All people want respect. We just want you to talk to your students like you would anyone else. When you ask a question, you may need to give a little bit longer to wait for them to formulate an answer. Some people communicate visually. You may need pictures to get your point across. You want to ask a student what they need help with. They know what they need help with, and you want to help them be able to ask questions when they need it. That's an important skill that they need to learn, self-advocacy. Get to know your student. These kids are awesome, and it will make your life better to get to know them. Take your time. Speak clearly, don't mumble. People with hearing loss, they have a hard time understanding you if you're not speaking clearly. We want you to use appropriate language for that kid or for the student that you're working with. And most importantly, listen carefully, ask questions, and be more understanding. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about challenging behavior. All children display challenging behaviors from time to time. Children with special needs can sometimes display these behaviors more frequently, and some of their behaviors can be more challenging. The strategies that we're providing here are based on positive behavioral supports, and they're designed to prevent challenging behaviors, respond to challenging behaviors with redirection and reinforcement rather than punishment, and teach alternative behaviors. Most of the time, children will display a challenging behavior when they don't feel heard. It's a form of communication for them. When we think of challenging behaviors as a child trying to communicate something to us rather than being bad or mean or spoiled, it is easier to resolve the challenging behavior. The most important thing is to find ways to better communicate with the child. So, it's the easiest place to change a behavior is before it happens. So I'm going to talk about the ABCs of behavior. Earlier I said that behavior is a form of communication. When people have limited access to verbal communication, they will communicate through other means, like behaviors. When we think about behavior as communication, we want to be thinking about the whole process. So the first part of that process is the antecedent. Most behaviors have a trigger or antecedent that you can identify once you know what you're looking for. The easiest place to change a behavior, especially a challenging behavior, is before it starts. So when you notice an antecedent, you want to intervene at that point and redirect your student to a more appropriate behavior. The behavior that we see is the result of an antecedent. So if a child is uncomfortable, if they have shoes on that are too tight and they're uncomfortable with that, having them take their shoes off is going to prevent them from getting really, really upset in the middle of a session with you. And then after the behavior, there's usually a consequence that's either a negative or a positive one. If a child is struggling with math and you're giving them problems that are too hard for them and they stop interacting, then they don't have to do that math that was too hard for them. So our next steps, we're going to want to fill out the volunteer information sheet. When I get your information, I will match you with a student, with the caregiver of a student. I'll send you an introductory email explaining, what's going on, and I will let you work out with that caregiver a schedule for when they need to see you, or when they're available and when you guys can work together. I'm going to do my best to put volunteers together with kids who are on a schedule that's similar. Every time you do a session, I'm going to give you a link down in the description for you to put your hours in. Please let me know. I will also be checking with caregivers to make sure, that we're getting all of those hours in and that what we're getting is accurate. And then just let us know anytime there's questions or concerns. You guys have a great day, and thank you for coming.